Know that a lot of people, and I was telling Teresa this earlier, a lot of people have been really isolated since COVID and are not getting out or not doing classes or not doing art, really not, we kind of got used to being in that place. Do you hear that from people, Norma? Or
Not
not so much,
here.
not there because they're
They're just
coming.
they're so excited that the opportunity is here. They'll do
Oh.
whatever to get out.
How are your classes going? Give us an update. What does it look like for you?
Uh, I currently have five going. I have a young lady that is teaching watercolor for me now on Monday evenings, and there's about 12 in that class. I have two youth classes that started back last week, and oh my goodness, I forgot what a mess they are.
Yes. Yes.
But it's fun, and it's just a joy. And they're both full. I have about 10. That's about all I can handle. And then I have an evening class for the adults and a morning class. So it's been a amazing trip. I'm telling you, I would have never thought I could teach. I would have never thought that I could open my mouth and teach. But you said, let it flow. I let it flow. And it's amazing when you have a passion for something, how that knowledge that um, I heard so many times over and over again. And sometimes I see people do it today. You tell them something and they do exactly the opposite, or they'll do it and they'll just go right over the top of it. And it takes, I don't, several times before that light comes on. But once that light comes on, I think you can, and then you can share it and you learn so much more by teaching it. And it's like, that's what I'd steal every day. It's, that's what she was saying, you know, and then you're able to share it with others. But it's amazing. That's all I can say. It's an amazing journey.
And so much of it's your experiences. We've been talking about that. I'll do a little Saturday morning Zoom Bible study, and we've been talking about boundaries and stuff, but we're talking about how much people, your joy and your passion are contagious. It gets on other people. And when you share your experiences of, I did this a million times before I finally got it. That's what you teach out of. And that's what people hear rather than
Right.
there's different forms of teaching, but lecture forms and different things. But when you share experience, when you share and show,
Yeah.
I think that's so it's so rewarding too. And Jennifer and I were talking about that, how wonderful it is to teach and share those things. You just can't hold it and hoard it. That the more you let it
Right.
flow through you and you're a conduit, it just gets all over you. You can't help but enjoy it. So
But it's a
what
process of learning,
yeah,
and when they see that and experience that, it makes a difference. It's not something we just automatically know how to do. If
right.
you understand that, then they're ready to. They just continue.
And we make a lot of mistakes in any new endeavor that we do, but it's, I think, just continuing to push through. And I always got nervous when I had new students coming. I don't know why. If it was people I already knew, hey, Carla, good morning. So glad you're here. If it was people I already knew and was comfortable with, and, the teaching format, because everybody's personality is different. And
Right.
so I was all, especially if men came, because men learn very differently. And I was always a little bit on edge when I had new students, just wanting them to like it so much.
The
Um,
dynamics change as well.
it changes the whole dynamic of the class. So it's challenging to navigate a lot of different personalities as along with your teaching and your experience. So Norma's got 5 classes going, um, a, a guest teacher in there too. Just oh my goodness, it just gives me so much joy to see. It's just a multiplication effect, and how it goes out in our families, in our. I told them when I got back from Jennifer's the other day, I was just lit up and getting back to creating or being in a community of creators. It makes us flourish. We just are not meant to be alone in any endeavors. It's not what God's plan was. How many each other verses are there in the Bible? Encourage each other, spur each other on, speak hymns to each other, whatever. There's a ton of them. Rick Warren talks about that, the each other verses in there, that we're better together. That's his purpose-driven life statement. We are better together. So I'm just so glad y'all are here. How is your schedule for this morning? Because I want to be uh, courteous towards your time.
I'm yours, baby.
Okay. Yeah.
Sure.
I got you all to myself.
So what else did I miss? Like, I hate that I missed anything.
Norma just gave us lots of good stuff about her classes, and pop in there, Norma. You know how we love to just share when something comes up about a student or anything that's going on with you.
That she was honored as being the representative in that pastel thing. Man, that just made me cry. Norma. That was so exciting.
Oh my goodness.
And I have to tell you, Norma, last night we had my husband, we had some of his coworkers over, and his daughter is legally blind, and so she has to be really close when she paints. And so I showed him your work, and I said it's doable. But I wish I'm gonna have to get him to send me a picture so I can share it with you. She does anime on the computer, the iPad. And she's they're using glass contacts for her because she can't, the regular contacts don't do enough. And then they did glasses, really thick glasses, and then they did like, you know, those things they do for like monocles for like
jewelers.
Yes, they did something like that, so she can she can see her parents for the first time.
Wow.
And she can see people's faces for the first time. Like, she dreams blurry.
Wow.
But can you imagine? And they think she might be able to drive.
Oh, wow.
Some of the stuff they're doing, so that it's a really experimental, and the insurance isn't paying for it. But it was so lovely to be able to say, but you can do, and I showed him your work. And I said, I said, it's doable. And he was like, oh my gosh, they couldn't believe your work, you know. And but there was one of the children was with us too. And he was like, wait, what? Explain this to me. How can she do that if she has trouble you know? And it was just like, I don't know. So your work goes out in so many ways.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
A quick story.
Yeah.
I have two children that have really poor vision. I mean, one little boy had his, you probably, if you look at any of the children's photos that I take in my shop or in my, on my site, you can see them, but both of them have really poor vision. The little boy had several surgeries, and the little girl is due to have several surgeries. And she even has the peripheral magnifying lens on the sides of her glasses. And she came in, of all the students that has been in, because I did the mural on the back wall and really brightened it up in here. She is the only one that came in and said, wow, it's so beautiful in here.
Oh,
the one that with the poorest vision was able to see the most.
Yeah.
Wow.
Aren't people amazing?
Yeah.
I love that.
But anyway, what am I doing? I sent Chrissy I'll put it up later. The last one I'm doing, the enormity, my dog too. So I'm working with Joanne Mangy still, and then I'm working with Dave Santilli's on Mountains, which, are you kidding me, is kicking my butt, because I've doing dog fur compared to mountains, whatever. They're not different. The same. And I'm still doing with Charles. But I still have troubles painting at home. I don't know how y'all do it. It's really hard for me to prioritize. I just have to leave the building to paint. And I used to be that way when I was a writer. I don't know. There's just too many distractions at home.
Yeah.
I've got to get better about figuring out how to say, okay, office time.
But I love that you prioritize that in attending classes and stuff, because and that's what Jennifer said. She said, I find that these girls will come up here and paint, but when they pay for them, they show up.
Right.
And you're like, she doesn't charge a lot, and I don't charge a whole lot compared to some other teachers, but it's like, it is an accountability thing. Even if we pay $10, we're like, oh, I paid $10. Am I just going to waste that?
That's what Charles said too. He said that if he tried to do it like just drop-in pays, and he said no one came. He said if they pay monthly, they like commit to, oh wait, I paid that money already.
Yeah.
And isn't that interesting?
Complex. Do you find that too, Norma?
Yes, that's what the youth all pay monthly, so it works much better that way. But I have to tell you something also. I took a class from Oliver Sen. Have you heard of him? He does the charcoal portraits.
Oh, I think so. Yes.
I mean, he does a beautiful job, but the more you know, the more you know how little you know. And he really took
Amen.
you down a notch or two, because you think, I don't have anything more to learn. And you go to these classes and it was just overwhelming of the knowledge that he had to share. And it's like, wow.
That's how I was with this. So I finally was looking at I'll put the white dog that I'm working on. It's not done, so y'all be kind.
Yeah.
But for the first time, I saw the form that Joanne was talking about that I was missing on mine, and it was like the light bulb went off. And I love when that light bulb goes off, and you see that thing that they've been talking about this whole time. And you go, "Oh, that's what she was talking about." Like she wanted to go, "Yes." I think if I was close by, she probably would have slapped me on the face. It says
That's
about time.
that's exactly what Norma was just saying. She was talking about when the light bulb goes off, and it is. It's so wonderful, and it's so exciting to know that you don't get to the end of your learning.
Dude, no,
It's so wonderful to know that we can keep learning, because I kind of get that feeling. I get a little cocky in my mind sometimes, thinking, I don't know if I want to take any workshops. Golly, I've heard all that stuff before.
Yeah.
Because it's for me almost 30 years of taking workshops. So it's like,
And you have to be careful because, like Sid said this with music, songwriting too. For me, if I take too many different instructors,
yeah.
then I shut down because I just like go,
You get different things, and yeah, it can
And
be
I
overwhelming.
what I like about Dave Santilli is it's just once a month, and he like goes over concepts kind of like you do, and it's like this time he went over edges, and I just looked at these dog posters. I've got some that I'm not finished, and I'm like, oh, the edges are wrong, and then he went over edges. I was like, I don't care if you're doing mountains, this applies to dogs too.
Right.
And it's just so you learn, man, you just never. I guess that's why it's exciting because you can never learn enough about drawing or paint. In my at least I can never learn enough.
And in the spiritual realm too, I find that, just hearing something. One of the things I'm going to show y'all is today's devotion from Rick Warren on taking the next step. And he's been talking all week about blind Bartimaeus. It's ironic that we're talking about eyesight because he talks about him in a minute. I'll share that. But just there's something about we can get complacent and just sit and not really do anything. And we've all had seasons where we've done that, where we've not been learning. We've just been going through the motions, whether it's somebody's ill, your own surgery or illness, where you just can't do anything else. And so it's just like you get up, you eat, you do your therapy or whatever you have to do, you take to the doctor, whatever you have to do, and then you go to sleep and you're like, wow, this was just a blah day. What did I do today?
My pottery teacher used to say that when people had those seasons, when they came back, he said they had learned so much because that's the time that it kind of like your brain is processing everything you've learned. So sometimes you come back and you're like, oh, I got it now.
Yeah.
So sometimes even though you don't think you're learning, that brain doesn't stop. Well, mine does sometimes, but
cow chewing the cud, maybe, you have to have time to internalize it. I don't know. But being away from it, it's also good because they say this in recovery. If you people that relapse in recovery from alcohol or drugs, it's like you didn't lose all those years that you were in recovery. They're not taken from you. So all the things that you've learned in art are not gone. Because I even thought to myself, can I teach? I mean, I've been 3 years away from it.
Everybody laugh with me. Yes, you can teach.
Or even can I do art, because I haven't been doing it much. Do we get out of practice to where we just can't do it? And I think there's so many little phrases and that can run around our heads to say, oh, you can't do it. And there's an enemy out there trying to keep it. Those of us in the Christian world, we know there's an enemy trying to keep us from doing what's good. And
I gotta tell you, anytime I have a class, everybody knocks on the door, calls or like comes by, or it's amazing the spiritual warfare to get to these classes. I don't know how people do it.
Yeah, to keep you from doing what's good in your spirit, and not to feel guilty about doing it. We're not. You don't, when you're doing art necessarily, you don't feel like you're doing a big spiritual mission field. But when you take care of what God has created you on your inside, then you are lit up to be used in so many other ways. So I think that's such an important thing for us to always remind ourselves. I was getting kind of, I think I just had that turning down mouth look because I was dealing with the tantrums in a toddler and a moody teenager. had all that stuff going on. Norma, how about you? Anything you want to show visually? And I'll see better.
Can you see that?
Oh my goodness.
Well,
Beautiful.
Oh, Norma.
Wow.
Oh,
Now, is
how
that oil or is that
sweet.
pastel?
I bet it's pastel because she's got
it
paper
is.
under it.
It is pastel, and of course, everyone is a challenge in figuring out how to do those lights. The challenge, and I'm going to
And
figure
pastel is a challenge. You do amazing things with pastel. Awesome. That is
that's it.
awesome. Are you just leaving it up in the studio there so you can work on it as you have a little time here and there?
Yeah, and that's been the good thing with having someone teach on Monday night is that while they're working on watercolor, which I have no interest in. I mean, it's beautiful, but I don't want to learn anything else right now.
Right.
I'll work on it.
It's funny that you said that because part of my conversation with Jennifer was she studied with Cedric Egley. I don't know if you know his work, but he's been in some of the portrait things that I've done, and he's got a Joan. There's a whole family of Egleys up north, and she said when she worked with him, and she's worked with, of course, Kinsler and some major people through the years. But she said one of the things they said was try not to spread yourself out too much. She said I started doing oils, my portraits for Portraits Inc. And somebody requested a watercolor portrait one time. So she said I started doing them, but I was painting my watercolors like oil with, the darks first, and you can't really do that. She said, but they liked the price point on watercolors because they weren't as expensive as the oils. So she said, then I got all these requests for watercolors. So I found myself really spread out and I wasn't doing as well. So she said she ended up going back to her oils. But she has all these things hanging in the studio. I don't know, Norma, if you ever have a time you could get away, but we would sure love to closer to you. But anyway, would love to be able to work together, maybe on a Saturday or a weekend or something.
Yeah, I would love it. I would love it.
It would be a reunion. I keep having this dream in my mind that a bunch of us are together for a reunion, just a paint day and eat day and catch up with each other. Awesome. So that would be fun. But anyway, just not spreading ourselves out too thin on what we're trying to learn. Carly, you just said that too, that it can get a little bit crazy in your head trying to do a lot of different switching from back and forth.
And there's so much curiosity, though. It's hard not to, because I look at that and go, ooh, I like watercolor. Ooh, I like pastel. Ooh.
Yeah. What this girl does is amazing that teaches.
Really?
Her horses are absolutely beautiful.
Wow. And she's local right there for you.
Yeah, and local and really young. So it's like,
wow. Share, because I consider a lot of things, creative endeavors. Oh,
I don't know if
you
see
sent
it.
me that picture. Yes, let me spotlight it so everybody can see it better. Oh, how beautiful.
Beautiful.
There we go. If we go back up.
Is that Carla? That's wonderful.
Maybe get some better light on it.
There the way you've wanted to paint with the looseness, that's really beautiful. That's what's going on right there. I love it.
Thank you. I'm enjoying it. And, that one I used a different medium. And so that was learning, you just had to figure out there's so many things to play with.
I know. That's what's so exciting about it. That's from Joanne. I mean, are you is she your influence there, or
that was her? Yeah, that was one of Joanne's classes. We're doing a black dog this week.
Ooh, those are great studies because Norma, because I consider lots of different things creative endeavors. This is a newsletter I just put together last night for the school. We only have about 15 students. They didn't even know if they'd be able to start the school. And I was really praying about it because I did not want Devin to go to Hunter's Lane. It's a bad situation over here, Hunter's Lane is. And I couldn't imagine Destiny with all of her social anxiety going into a classroom with 20 or 30 kids. Just was going to be really hard. She's so attached to me. So this sweetness, there's only 4 in the kindergarten, first grade class, and there's about 12 in the middle school and high school. So it's a really manageable, and we really are able to give a lot of one-on-one with the students. But I love putting these kinds of things together. I love taking pictures And so for the first time, parents are getting this is just screenshots of the interactive newsletter where people can actually click and watch videos. And I made them a YouTube channel, my keep. Here's Devin he's almost 16, and here's Desi, and they are just flourishing there. And so that's what God has had me do in these 3 years, is helping create a safe, consistent, secure, loving environment for them, along with Mark and their daddy. We are quite a team here. And I showed it last time. I'll go back to that in a minute, but I showed a little bit of the house next door. We have done 5 renovations in the last 2 years, complete renovations. Most people don't do 1 renovation in their whole lifetime. So I've tried to give myself a little grace, but doing the cottage and doing the house next door, we have renters in it right now all the way through the end of the year. They're like traveling musicians or nurses, and so they're just, it's a month or 3 months or something. But we furnished that whole house next door from Goodwill and Marketplace, and we did all the work ourselves, from plumbing, flooring, everything. So I had a little video I posted last time. So we've had a lot of creative stuff going on. This is my little classroom. We're in a church because the school flooded last Christmas, and the insurance will not pay for it. So we're in a church there in Old Hickory, right by the lake on Jones Street. And this is my little art class, but there's a bunch of kids back in the back here. But this is little Arthur. And he's on the spectrum. They're having a little behavior problems with him, but he absolutely loves art. And I show a little inspirational video. They got me this huge 75-inch TV for in there, which is fabulous for my PowerPoints and my little videos I like to show. But he is absolutely engrossed in every video that I show or anything that I'm teaching him. And this little girl, Raina, is also on the spectrum, and she's very awkward socially, but she sees art and she's like, whoa, how do they do that? How do they do that? And she's new. I've had Arthur before, but Arthur's one of 6 children. Just the sweet interactions with these kids and their thirst for art. It's just, you know it, Norma, and just anytime you share it with somebody that's so receptive like that. For some reason, when I was going through my Inspire file, I found this Renoir picture, and I know I've shown this to you guys before, but whenever I see his hands, I'm like, and I looked up his paintings. Which paintings did he do with hands like that? Because remember, let's see, I think I got another picture of him. Here he is with the brushes tied to his hands. And some of the later paintings he did, because I think he died in 1919, but some of his last paintings were done that year when he was like this, the Bathers. And it's like, wow, you can still do it no matter what your hang up is or your problem or your disability.
So what's our excuse?
I know. What's our excuse? Yeah. I mean, well, and the other thing I kept seeing, and I said this before, I said it to Grace when I was talking to her this morning, and I'm going to share a little bit about that, but what's the next step? What do you need to step out in faith on right now? And of course it's different for all of us, the seasons and whatever. But here's a quote by Renoir: "One must from time to time attempt things that are beyond one's capacity." And I think that's so key. And I look at these hands. I was looking for something, and I came up on this close up of this Renoir, and I think it's oil, but he did some pastel. Look at the colors in this hand. Mine would look just like a fat bunch of sausages right here, because you can see the bends and everything. You can see the knuckles. I see the circles. That circle thing helped me more than anything. You can see the bend of the wrist right here. Look at all the temperature changes from yellow to cool blue greens to hot pink on the knuckles. That reminds me of Margaret Dyer, because she would always put those pops of bright orange on the fingertips or the knuckles sometimes. But until we zoom in and look at some of this art, we don't even think to put that in there because our natural eye doesn't see color that way unless we're trained to see it. So I just thought about hands, and I thought about these hands. I don't know if he was 80. I don't know how old he was here, and these brand new young hands, and just what we do with our hands. I just thought we could spend a minute on that. Any thoughts about it? Other than what's my excuse? Why am I not doing it? I don't want to say that.
This isn't related to that, but I did mean to tell you last night, this little boy that was here, he's in eighth grade, whatever age that is. I said, well, he said, he looked around, he literally went up to every painting of mine and studied it. He didn't just look at them. And he said, I don't know that I have a hobby. I said, well, you like to do? He said, well, I like to draw. Well, he said, it's more of an addiction. I'm like, and you don't think you have a hobby? But he's that age where they do the anime.
Yes.
Yeah. But he doesn't think that's legit. And I'm like, that's legit. Whatever turns you on. But sorry, that was a side.
No, I mean that's true. And I think just being mindful, that's why I show you the pictures of the kids or the newsletter or the house next door that we renovated or a flower bed, that was covered in Bermuda grass that you got out there and you sat on your butt and pulled all that, but then you tried to get up off your butt and stand up Bridget will appreciate that. That's creative, whatever it is that we do. And I found this is an old slide, and I think I had shared this with you guys before, but there's a movie. You can get it on, you can get it on Roku. You can stream it. It's on Apple TV. It's called Renoir. And I wanted to show you, it's only a minute and a half trailer, but I wanted to show you that. And let me read the description. It says the story takes place in the summer of 1915, just 4 years before he died, near the end of Pierre Auguste Renoir's life and shortly after the death of his wife, Aline. Crippled with the pain and debilitation of rheumatoid arthritis, Renoir continues to paint, his hands taped each day. The arrival of a new model, the fiery redhead Andrea Huschling, also called Dee Dee, brings a new energy and zest to the painter. Renoir's and it goes on to talk about his son. I didn't copy that part. But I wanted to just show you the beautiful trailer, because if you can watch this on your best TV, whether it's accurate or not, there's some nudity in it, doesn't matter. It's so beautifully filmed. I think it will fill your creative well. Can y'all see okay? Minute and a half. Subtitles.
La maison des Renards, c'est bien ici?
Comment tu t'appelles?
André.
Je crois que nous allons travailler tous les deux. Un tableau doit être une chose aimable et heureuse.
C'est qui ce bébé?
C'est mon frère Jean.
Il est beau.
Tu ne comptes tout de même pas retourner au front?
Si j'étais guéri, je serais encore au combat. C'est remis à prendre des figures.
Grâce à Dédé.
La peinture de Renoir, ça me donne envie de la manger.
Vous avez envie de me manger?
Il faut se laisser aller dans la vie.
Faut pas avoir peur. Moi, je veux tout. J'ai pas envie d'attendre, j'ai pas la patience.
Toi aussi. Tu ne peux pas te passer d'elle.
Je retourne au combat.
Jean, ne force pas la destinée.
T'as pensé à moi? Tu m'avais tout promis.
Explique-moi pourquoi elle a disparu du jour au lendemain.
J'en ai marre des Renards.
On aura besoin de toi.
Renoir, le père ou le fils?
Isn't that beautiful? I don't know about you, but I'm so thankful we live in an age where we have these amazing 4K TVs, and the lighting. I mean, there may be some things offensive to you in there. I don't know, but I can't remember. It's been several years since I watched it, but I came across it in my PowerPoint and I thought, I used to watch, Poldark and some of those. I haven't watched any of those things in so long. And it's a feast for your eyes to watch something that's beautifully lit and filmed like that. And so I think we just don't fill our creative well sometimes like we should, or like we can, not like we should. We don't should on ourselves, is what they say. We try to give ourselves those treats. Remember when we used to get magazines, and I remember looking forward to my art magazine and a cup of tea and everybody's quiet, and I would sit down at night and look at the magazine and just soak in those images. It was like my hot fudge sundae treat that I would do for myself. Do you guys do that? Do you give yourself these kinds of little excursions? Talk to me.
I used to, and I've kind of forgotten to do that. So I appreciate the reminder to get back to it.
It lights something in you to go, ooh, look at that lighting. Oh my goodness. And it makes us want to notice. I mean, what is Winston Churchill? That's the one I always go back to, is one of the chief delights of painting is a heightened sense of observation. And that we don't just go through the day and miss everything that's around us, all the beauty that's around us. God means he gave it to us as such a beautiful gift. He doesn't mean for us to miss it. And so many things, like you said, Carla, crowd in on us and try to eclipse that. I think about Desi singing that This Little Light of Mine. I came across a video of her the other day where she had one of those little sequin shirts on, and she was in the kitchen and it was putting lights all over the refrigerator. And then when it lit her up, the light was shining on her. It made my camera make her glow, and her little hands were glowing when she was talking. She was singing This Little Light of Mine, I'm going to let it shine. And I just needed to stop and look at that again and go, we all have a light to shine.
Yeah.
And we need to fill the well so that it pops, it busts the sunbeams bust out of us. And
I'm gonna let it shine, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, hide it under a
Don't say no.
I'm gonna let
Let it shine.
hide it under a bushel.
No.
I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Let it shine for Jesus. I don't let it shine. Yeah.
Wow. Is that beautiful or what? How does it do that, Des?
I don't know.
Very pretty. This little light of mine.
get on everybody else.
One of my classmates just discovered that little Winston Churchill book, and I said, one of my teachers recommends us read it every year, so I'm going to pull it out.
Painting as a pastime. It's so good. Those quotes in there are so wonderful. So, and, oh goodness, the time's just flying right on by. I'm just yakking y'all's heads off like I do.
And we love it.
I got one more video I want to show you. This is one I found a little website. Norma, I don't know if you need this. Oh, she stepped away for a minute. One called The Artsy Teacher. And she has a whole page of YouTube. The Artsy Teacher, Norma, she's got a whole page of YouTube video, TED Talks that are good for teaching kids art. And I like to include, I try to get just like a 5-minute video to include for them. But this is one of the first ones I showed, and it's called Embrace the Shake. And I think you're going to love it.
I love the name.
Embrace the Shake, yes. And them together, sometimes I'll send it out, and we just don't make time to do it. But I think when we do it together, we get to enjoy it together. You know how nice it is to have somebody sit down and watch a movie with you and enjoy the things together. I love to do that with you guys. So 10 minutes. Well, we'll see if we need to pause it.
So when I was in art school, I developed a shake in my hand, and this was the straightest line I could draw. Now, in hindsight, it was actually good for some things like mixing a can of paint or shaking a Polaroid. But at the time, this was really doomsday. This was the destruction of my dream of becoming an artist. The shake developed out of really a single-minded pursuit of pointillism, just years of making tiny, tiny dots. And eventually, these dots went from being perfectly round to looking more like tadpoles because of the shake. So to compensate, I'd hold the pen tighter, and this progressively made the shake worse, so I'd hold the pen tighter still. And this became a vicious cycle that ended up causing so much pain and joint issues, I had trouble holding anything. And after spending all my life wanting to do art, I left art school, and then I left art completely. But after a few years, I just couldn't stay away from art, and I decided to go to a neurologist about the shake and discovered I had permanent nerve damage. And he actually took one look at my squiggly line and said, well, why don't you just embrace the shake? So I did. I went home, I grabbed a pencil, and I just started letting my hand shake and shake. I was making all these scribble pictures. And even though it wasn't the kind of art that I was ultimately passionate about, it felt great. And more importantly, once I embraced the shake, I realized I could still make art. I just had to find a different approach to making the art that I wanted. Now, I still enjoyed the fragmentation of pointillism, seeing these little tiny dots come together to make this unified whole. So I began experimenting with other ways to fragment images where the shake wouldn't affect the work, like dipping my feet in paint and walking on a canvas. Or in a 3D structure consisting of 2x4s, creating a 2D image by burning it with a blowtorch. I discovered that if I worked on a larger scale and with bigger materials, my hand really wouldn't hurt. And after having gone from a single approach to art, I ended up having an approach to creativity that completely changed my artistic horizons. This was the first time I'd encountered this idea that embracing a limitation could actually drive creativity. At the time, I was finishing up school, and I was so excited to get a real job and finally afford new art supplies. I had this horrible little set of tools, and I felt like I could do so much more with the supplies I thought an artist was supposed to have. I actually didn't even have a regular pair of scissors. I was using these metal shears until I stole a pair from the office that I worked at. So I got out of school, I got a job, I got a paycheck, I got myself to the art store, and I just went nuts buying supplies. And then when I got home, I sat down and I set myself to task to really try to create something just completely outside of the box. But I sat there for hours, and nothing came to mind. The same thing the next day, and then the next, quickly slipping into a creative slump. And I was in a dark place for a long time, unable to create. And it didn't make any sense because I was finally able to support my art, and yet I was creatively blank. But as I searched around in the darkness, I realized I was actually paralyzed by all of the choices that I never had before. And it was then that I thought back to my jittery hands, embraced the shake. And I realized if I ever wanted my creativity back, I had to quit trying so hard to think outside of the box and get back into it. I wondered, could you become more creative then by looking for limitations? What if I could only create with $1's worth of supplies? At this point, I was spending a lot of my evenings in, well, I guess I still spend a lot of my evenings in Starbucks, but I know you can ask for an extra cup if you want one. So I decided to ask for 50. Surprisingly, they just handed them right over, and then with some pencils I already had, I made this project for only 80 cents. It really became a moment of clarification for me that we need to first be limited in order to become limitless. I took this approach of thinking inside the box to my canvas and wondered, what if instead of painting on a canvas, I could only paint on my chest? So I painted 30 images, one layer at a time, one on top of another, with each picture representing an influence in my life. Or what if instead of painting with a brush, I could only paint with karate chops? So I dipped my hands in paint, and I just attacked the canvas, and I actually hit so hard that I bruised a joint in my pinky, and it was stuck straight for a couple weeks. Or what if instead of relying on myself, I had to rely on other people to create the content for the art? So for 6 days, I lived in front of a webcam, I slept on the floor, and I ate takeout. and I asked people to call me and share a story with me about a life-changing moment. Their stories became the art as I wrote them onto the revolving canvas. Or, what if instead of making art to display, I had to destroy it? This seemed like the ultimate limitation, being an artist without art. This destruction idea turned into a year-long project that I called Goodbye Art, where each and every piece of art had to be destroyed after its creation. In the beginning of Goodbye Art, I focused on forced destruction, like this image of Jimi Hendrix, made with over 7,000 matches. Then I opened it up to creating art that was destroyed naturally. I looked for temporary materials, like spitting out food.
Gross.
Sidewalk chalk, and even frozen wine. The last iteration of destruction was to try to produce something that didn't actually exist in the first place. So I organized candles on a table, I lit them and then blew them out. Then repeated this process over and over with the same set of candles. Then assembled the videos into the larger image. So the end image was never visible as a physical whole. It was destroyed before it ever existed. In the course of this Goodbye Art series, I created 23 different pieces with nothing left to physically display. What I thought would be the ultimate limitation actually turned out to be the ultimate liberation, as each time I created, the destruction brought me back to a neutral place where I felt refreshed and ready to start the next project. It did not happen overnight. There were times when my projects failed to get off the ground, or even worse, after spending tons of time on them, the end image was kind of embarrassing. But having committed to the process, I continued on, and something really surprising came out of this. As I destroyed each project, I was learning to let go. Let go of outcomes, let go of failures, and let go of imperfections. And in return, I found a process of creating art that's perpetual and unencumbered by results. I found myself in a state of constant creation, thinking only of what's next and coming up with more ideas than ever. When I think back to my 3 years away from art, away from my dream, just going through the motions, instead of trying to find a different way to continue that dream, I just quit. I gave up. And what if I didn't embrace the shake? Because embracing the shake for me wasn't just about art and having art skills. It turned out to be about life and having life skills. Because ultimately, most of what we do takes place here, inside the box with limited resources. Learning to be creative within the confines of our limitations is the best hope we have to transform ourselves and collectively transform our world. Looking at limitations as a source of creativity changed the course of my life. Now, when I run into a barrier or I find myself creatively stumped, I sometimes still struggle, but I continue to show up for the process and try to remind myself of the possibilities, like using hundreds of real live worms to make an image, using a pushpin to tattoo a banana, or painting a picture with hamburger grease. One of my most recent endeavors is to try to translate the habits of creativity that I've learned into something others can replicate. Limitations may be the most unlikely of places to harness creativity, but perhaps one of the best ways to get ourselves out of ruts, rethink categories, and challenge accepted norms. And instead of telling each other to seize the day, maybe we can remind ourselves every day to seize the limitation. Thank you.
I'm trying to take some notes because every time I listen to this, I hear some other pretty profound things.
I'm fascinated by the way his mind works, the places he went. You know, to me, that's beyond my level of creativity. I'm impressed that he could visualize past all of that.
Yeah, I mean, we're all so different. And so, again, one of the biggest problems I ever found in studios was comparisons that people make and how that can cripple. Some people are crippled by that. Others are spurred on by that. I'm going to do that good. I'm going to get that good, or I'm going to. But I love, the statement he's made about being paralyzed by all the choices too, because I can relate to that sometimes, especially when you sit down, or just when he had that creative slump and nothing came to mind. And that's where I go back to feeding our well with images. And I've been hearing this lately in my spiritual relationship with God of if we don't, it just flew away. Good grief. Come on. Paralyzed by the choices, nothing came to mind. Creative slump, creatively blank. Oh, I know what it was. There it is. Talk about blank. Is one of my devotions last week was talking about using imagery as you pray, because I'm in two different things right now about prayer and using your imagination. And also, I posted a picture on Facebook this week of the lamb in the mud. I don't know if any of y'all saw that. That was so powerful. It's a lamb in the mud, and there's Jesus in the fog behind, running towards that lamb in the midst of all this thicket. And that one image to me was so powerful. And art is the universal language. And we can say a quote to somebody and then go, oh, wait, what did you just say? We can grab little bits and pieces of a quote that we can't see. We can only hear it. But when you show an image like that, it makes an imprint on us forever. And that one imprinted my faith so much to believe in the people that I'm praying for right now, that God is running after them, that he leaves the 99 for the one. I mean, so many different things came to mind with that image. But using imagery as we pray or as we create, just how many times have you seen, I used to see the kids playing tea parties or dress up, or when I did Mission Friends years and years ago when my kids were little at church, we always studied different cultures. And so I would have them dress up and role play different things. And we had no phones or cameras back then. And I was so busy teaching and interacting with them, I couldn't take pictures. But I was like, oh my goodness, that's a painting right there. Those children dressed up playing doctor or chef. I still remember these little boys, redheaded boy with a big chef's hat on and making spaghetti. And, that would have been the most darling painting. But I couldn't capture it. And I don't have the visual memory enough to remember it to paint by. But how much God wants to use and plant those images and how powerful images are. So I think that's key. And some of what he was talking about, he had to have some kind of image for these things to put them into play. He said, I believe, ask the question, can you become more creative by looking for limitations instead of seeing, and all that has to do with our perspective and how we decide to view a situation. Perspective means everything. Which angle are we going to take on it? Destruction. Here's another one. Destruction brought me back to a neutral place. It helped me learn to let go of outcomes and failures. And I missed the third word. I wanted to go back and read it, or write it down. Destruction brought me to back to a neutral place. Have you ever laid out a bunch of old paintings that were in the closet and gessoed over them? Has anybody ever done that?
I burnt them.
You burned them? My little waste not, want not mommy would not let me burn them. But when I gessoed over them, I cannot tell you the freedom I felt in my spirit, because they were a constant reminder of failure to me. They were like, ooh, what am I going to do with those? And then was it Denise or somebody on one of these sessions? I showed y'all a bunch of the paintings when we moved that I gave away or threw away. And she said, why didn't you cut out pieces of those and make another piece of art instead of throwing them away? Because every painting had at least one thing. Remember, I always used to say that. Try to find one thing you like about your art when you're in the moaning, groaning stage. And I was like, oh, darn, I could have done that. But I would have just left them in the closet probably and never gone and cut all those pieces out. But I just love even the idea of looking at things differently because I get so stuck in a rut, y'all. I do things the same old way. And I see it with Destiny as a 5-year-old. She wants 3 stories every night. She wants her chocolate milk. She wants me to lay down with her. She has these little ruts or routines that we use please sing all night, all day. Angel's watching over me. I have to sing it until she falls asleep. And it's driving me crazy. But there's something in her brain that is comforting and allows her to wind down and go to sleep by that little consistent routine. So while it's comforting, it can also keep us in a little box with how we do things. So there's a balance with that.
They make
Carla?
little teddy bears. You can record your voice. I think you could sing it so she could just squeeze it. So you wouldn't have to.
And she's been resistant to hugs and stuff lately, or for a time. And here lately, I've noticed she comes right up here on my pillows. We called my boobs her pillows. Instead of she don't even know what the word boob means. She just knows. The other day in the shower, because I'm trying to be a little bit. Mama was so modest with us that I had never seen a naked body until I was like 25 years old or something. So I always thought something was really wrong with me. And I'm trying to be more free with her. But she was just looking at me the other day and she said, why don't I have any pillows? And, just to be okay. And another sweet friend of mine said, my grandmother was so comfortable with herself. I never heard her say anything negative about the body that God had given her. And I thought, well,
Wow.
Isn't that nice? maybe I could learn something from that because I've always dogged myself. So anyway, that was a side note. Sorry on the video about that, but yeah, the routines we get in, the little ruts that we have to recognize sometimes and stop and do an awareness check of how am I limiting myself just because I'm so used to doing it that way. And what do I need to do to step out and do something a little different? It takes courage to do that. And the last thing he said was learning to be creative within the confines of our limitations. Goes back to, full circle to Renoir and his hands. And it's not to shame and say, well, you need to get your butt up. Because honestly, when you feel bad, the last thing you have energy for is to get up and do another thing. So shame has never been a good motivator for me. But when I see somebody else, doing it, and like my sister said this morning, we got to get back to exercise. And you know how good we feel when we exercise. It's the reward that we need to focus on and not the shame of, well, you need to do that. You need to get your butt up and do that because whatever.
We watched the 9/11 tribute on Saturday with the Wounded Warriors. You talk about humbling and just, to me, it's inspiring to see people who overcome.
Yes.
Because, it just makes me think, just get up, just do it.
Yes. Amen, Carla. I always have been that way. I've always liked, and I've gotten myself into some relationships with dangerous people sometimes because I'm drawn to people who are very colorful and sometimes extreme. And I think that we talked about that this week in a couple of other venues. I've got a few more slides I want to show y'all, and jump in there at any time. We've still got.
I've learned that the people that get attracted to me are the ones that want to live through my energy.
Yes.
That and I'm just like, you can't live vicariously through other people. You've got to find your passion, and that's a scary thing I think aren't you the one that uses the word energy vampire?
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to be so careful with your energy.
It can deplete you if you're not careful, because people who don't want to do the work, who just want to hang with you sometimes and live through you
vicariously. Yeah.
It's discernment that we need for that, and we're doing this Bible study on Saturdays about boundaries. And it this week has talked about walls in our life. And what we did in COVID, we had to wall ourselves off. but that every wall has a gate. It should have a gate, or it's just a completely closed barrier. The gate is the most vulnerable, but the most important part. So it can either be an ally coming through. In the old ancient world was more, tangible for us to understand that. But the gate could either allow an ally to come through and bring provisions that would be health of the whole city, or it could be where the enemy comes through that you have to bar that gate. So we just need wisdom. And that goes back to our creativity, because if we've opened the door to let everything in without discernment, then we're closing ourselves off to creativity sometimes, and to freedom and joy, because we've overcommitted. The other thing in this study, it's a fabulous study. We're going through it like a snail's pace. It'll take us probably a year. So if you're ever free on a Saturday morning at 9:00, just text me and I'll send you the link. But it's really good.
And it's a lovely group of people.
It's a lovely group of just precious people. So I lost my train of thought. You know how that goes. But anyway, it's important who we let in, and it's important to.
One of my
be
dearest
wise.
friends said that the gift that COVID gave us was when we closed all the doors, it let us choose which ones we wanted to reopen,
Yes.
as opposed to just like we've been talking about, keeping that same routine, and so we can be more careful what we let in.
Yes.
The scary thing about for artists is, man, there's a lot of online opportunities.
Yes.
Talk
And
about discernment.
I hear people say, it's just not the same as in person. It's just like at church. And our pastor talked about that Sunday. He said, you can do online church and you can be filled with the word, but there's something like a guy was baptized Sunday. That's a homeless guy that's living in the house in front of our church that they've renovated, the Home Street Home Ministries. And he was this big, muscular guy with kind of handsome guy, and he's deaf. He's losing his hearing, and he's only like 30. But he spoke out so profoundly when he said the profession of faith in Christ. And then there was a little older man that has MS that baptized him because he's been mentoring him. And I thought, oh my goodness, is he going to be able to lift him up out of the water? And when he lifted him up, it was like, and he stood up, and he just had this brightness about him.
Wow.
That was like, oh my goodness. And you wouldn't have gotten that through just watching it so much like you did being right there in person. And so another girl and I walked out together, and I went, whoa, was that just so powerful? Just seeing that man transformed, and just the joy he had. It was just so sweet. So it's the same with art, that when we actually touch the stuff together, when we see each other, when we can laugh together and eat together, there's just something about it.
It's not the same, but on the other hand, some of the things like Joanne Manji, there's no way I could have afforded.
Yes.
All the classes I've had with her, and she has had a profound effect on the looseness that I wanted to get, and my understanding. So there's and I got to tell you, the weekend, I think Norma and I've talked about the weekend workshops. They're exhausting, man. I just come out and I just go. So there's a balance of all this, I think.
Yeah, and it's both. We get to have both. We have such a wealth of resources at our disposal. Jennifer talked about that when I was with her. She said, Cedric Eggley talked about using different things. Why would we not? And then some other guy did a demo, and he didn't show the part where he had transferred the drawing over, and somebody called him out on it. And he backed up and said, yes, you can, learn to draw, but sometimes you do this because of time restraints or whatever. And so it was really good to hear some different, and she's going to that thing in Taos this week. She's 71 years old.
This thing in Taos, what thing in Taos?
This is a workshop she's doing with Kevin McPherson. And she's professional, she does portraits. She said, but this doing plein air is out of my, wheelhouse. And she said, I'm going to be I've already looked at it's other professional artists. You had to get accepted into this workshop.
Amazing. He's
and
amazing.
She said, I'm going to have to, we go and do 2 paintings a day in the afternoon, and he critiques them in the evening. And she said, I'm really nervous that can I do this? Can I stand on my feet? Can I haul this backpack up in the woods or wherever they're going to be? So I admire that in her. She showed me all of her stuff that she had ready, and she's been doing all these little plein air studies. But I admire her.
Or oil?
She's oil, and I said earlier, she's, did some watercolors for a while, but these are all oil. But if you come to the studio up there, you'll get to see all these studies, and oh my gosh, she has beautiful light. in her house. She showed me her house, these paintings that there's deer in the woods, and she turns this light on and it looks like a beam of light is coming down on these deer. It is just fabulous. So you'll be really inspired by just looking at her art. It's pretty amazing.
Look at her light up talking about this.
I know, you know, that's an answer right there, because if you're just kind of, maybe, I don't know, it doesn't seem like time. I think God does that for us. This is an old slide I had in here from several years ago. I did a Bible study called Get Out of Your Head. And this was an exercise. And I've shared this with you all before, but I came across it when I was looking over the PowerPoint this morning. And she had us draw a picture of you with everything you could ever want for yourself. Now, I didn't put me in here. Maybe I did. She said, this is an invitation to go 100% me, me, me. Put it all in the square. It should be fun. Stick figures and titling your little images are great. So this was what I did way before we ever thought of moving or COVID or anything. I have a little easel with unlimited painting time. I have a picture of a bunch of us around the table under my arbor. Here's my arbor, if you can tell what that is. Garden parties, because I love doing that. I have Mark and I down here that we may live long in the land, with Mark growing in his relationship with God. I got a cross right here. I have all these people on the pew. That's all my lovies being at church with me, because I've been sitting in church for so many years by myself. And I just love that image in Places of the Heart where they're all sitting on a pew with Sally Field and John Malkovich. And I don't know if y'all have ever seen that movie, but some of the people have passed away, but they're all squished in the pew and they're all living at peace and they're all just together. I mean, it's just the sweetest thing. So I had that little image of people in the pew. Going to Greece, Italy, Spain. I don't know if that's going to happen. Front porch days. I drew a little swing and some stairs. I don't know what that is. Me standing on a rock. And that means I put unwavering faith that I wouldn't keep having this wishy-washy. Oh, I don't know. And then I've got a little coffee cup or a little teapot to be filled and then spilled and to splash on people around me. So I looked at that today and I thought, wow, look how my life has changed. But look how God has changed my desires at this season in my life. And he does give us the desires of our hearts. And sometimes we just don't stop long enough to look.
What a great exercise.
Wow. Oh, it was so wonderful.
And I can say your faith has, since I've known you, has just, man, it's grown in leaps and bounds.
And it's not without the influence of so many people and so many artists, particularly. You guys have been a huge part of helping my faith to grow, and all these hard experiences that we've all gone through make us better rather than bitter, make us closer to God. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that and using imagery.
What but great, you're supposed to do whatever you want to do for yourself.
Yeah, whatever. This is all about you. If you could have anything, what would it be? And it really makes you stop and think.
I did that one time and I thought, it really brought into light how important family is. And if you boil it down, that time with family is so important. Maybe because we've had so many losses, but.
Well, it makes you look at priorities because you think, what do I really want? Do I want some more stuff? Did I even really want this big old house and, 4,500 square feet and 4 more buildings out there to take care of? We've been working on the barn this week and, there's something that always needs painting or repairing or fixing or weed eating or something.
We talk about downsizing, then we realize you can't put a grand piano in a tiny house or a pool.
Yeah, different things that you'd never imagine that God brings us to, and just recognizing his input, taking the next step. Cute. I love this one though. What are your limitations? It's all in your head. What's holding you back. That's one of my favorite ones that I keep. This was to this morning's devotional from Rick Warren, and it was so good. And it says, are we done? Oh, we got a couple more minutes. If you're asking God to help you with something, he may be asking you, why haven't you done what I've already told you to do? You might be planning to do something. Stop planning, just do it. And here's the Bartimaeus thing. Bartimaeus was a blind man who called out to Jesus in faith, believing that Jesus could heal him. There's faith. Before Bartimaeus met Jesus, he was sitting beside the road. After he received his sight from the Lord, he began following him on the road. Which of those two phrases best describes your life? Are you sitting beside the road, or are you following Jesus on the road? Which of those two lifestyles do you think is more fulfilling, and which do you think offers more joy, more meaning, more satisfaction? Which do you want to represent in your life? He always has a few little questions. There's only one way to follow Christ on the road, and that's to take the next step. And I believe that our part as artists in our spiritual walk with God is linked together. It's not, he created us, just like Paul kept making tents while he was doing, everything he did. I don't know if that was a joy to him, but he kept doing it. But taking the next step, and that's what this was called, take the next step. And fresh starts. He talks at the bottom, it says, if people say they have faith but do nothing, their faith is worth nothing. And then everything that we have, right thinking, right living, a clean slate, a fresh start, all that comes from God by way of Christ. And I just love, it feels like a fresh start for me right now. And am I going to have courage to follow through with it, to see where it goes? Like you, Norma, I think about you with renting that building, and that had to be so scary for you.
It was. Everything I think happens as it is meant to be.
Was and is.
Is. Well,
and all in timing.
All in timing.
With the amazing turnout you've had, and how hungry that community is just, I'm just watching it in awe.
My mom and my sister just told me that they had these discussions, and not only within themselves, but with other people in the community, and they were really fearful that it would fail. And they only now told me.
Oh, wow. I didn't think it was going to fail.
Yeah.
Me either.
They were really worried for me. But
that's a mom.
I had a great example, so I knew it could be successful.
That reminds me. Oh, go ahead.
You also had the piece that if it didn't, that was okay too.
Yeah.
Because you knew you had to try.
Well, and it's scary when your income has to be a certain amount, and you got to cover your expenses, you got to cover. So it is, there's an element of faith in there as well, even on an ongoing basis, because my classes would go down sometimes and I'll go, oh no, how are we going to make it through this? Because people are busy and kids grow up and go off to college, and, everything's always changing. But that goes back to that faith element there of trusting. If God brought me to all this, if God brought us to all this, well, he's going to help us exist in it and flourish in it.
We said the exact same thing the other day about the cabin, that he didn't give it to us just, and I can still, I go back to it all the time, Christy. I can remember you and I praying the doors would close if it wasn't the right thing for us to do, because we had no idea what the heck we were supposed to do.
I loved it. I love just I found this quote by Corrie ten Boom, a couple of them, and I love Corrie ten Boom. I went to the theater and saw that movie about her life. It's a play that they recorded. If you ever get a chance to see it, it was
what's
just
it called?
phenomenal. Do you know? Is it The Hiding Place? It kept popping up on Facebook, and my sister and I went to Indian Lake and saw it. It was only there for a few days, but it was just incredible. It was a really good movie, but her life was just so inspirational. She says,
my gosh.
Here, memories are the key, not to the past, but to the future. I know that the experiences of our lives, when we let God use them, become the mysterious and perfect preparation for the work he will give us to do. And how, again, every experience God gives us, every person he puts in our lives, this is true of you guys for me, is the perfect preparation for a future that only he can see. And there you go, Norma, because that's, never be afraid to trust an unknown future to a known God. All just such beautiful reminders of, we don't know what it'll be. We don't know how our health's going to be. So just a couple of summaries of today is, embrace the shake, embrace the limitation, and don't just give up, because it is so tempting to just go, I'm just going to give up. And when you start to notice your own spirit being dampened, that something, something's amiss. So I was starting to notice that. I was really starting to notice that myself. And I had a few weeks where it was really hard, and Desi was having temper tantrums every day. And I'm sure she was reacting off of me as well. I told Mark, I said, I don't want to do this anymore. This was not my plan for 62 to be a mom. I don't like it. And so it was kind of a catalyst.
We have a friend that's fighting to get his life back. It's a brother of a friend, and they have storms, neurological storms. And what they say about these neurological storms is after that storm, the next really big step of healing comes. And I kind of feel like that's what happened with you. You had the storm, and then now look where you are. But boy, those storms are not fun, are they?
No, and I mean, just circumstances sometimes. I'm sure Bridget can, and Teresa too, with you guys have had health things and surgeries, and those can really set you back and affect your morale and your spirit, your motivation for doing things, because chronic pain.
But you're swimming again, right, Bridget?
Yeah, I am. But it's funny that this subject is coming up, because yesterday and half of Sunday was just an uncomfortable day. It's not a lot about pain management. I was only on pain meds for 2 weeks, and I only took half doses at that. So I haven't had to take pain medication, but it's trying to get into a neutral position to be comfortable enough just to sleep. And that I just was so sleep deprived by yesterday that it was a waterfall.
It's exhausting. Yeah.
It was exhausting. Last night I got great sleep, and today I already knew I was going to get to talk to you guys, which was something to look forward to. But yeah, today's a good day. But yeah, I got clearance to get back in the pool 2 weeks ago, so that really helps. But I didn't go yesterday because I was exhausted from lack of sleep. And so yeah, there's a bit of a roller coaster to this, but I have a straight leg now. So I think back to when I first started at Christie's. I stood at an easel to paint, and I loved that. I can hardly even remember doing that. I've been sitting for so long because of having these buggered up knees. And so, there's another surgery ahead for the other one, and probably in the spring, but I want to get this one 100%, or at least close enough to it that I'm ready for the second one. And I'm going to be standing in an easel again, and I really look forward to that.
But that'll be a day of rejoicing.
Oh yeah.
My daddy's calling on my phone. I'm going to call him back later, but he is 84, and he's had both knees, both hips, both hands.
Are you serious?
And he's like, I would be a cripple right now without these surgeries. And he's still up in the woods. Now he's not doing everything. He's really feeling, the change, but just the miraculous age that we live in.
And I'd be blind.
Yeah, Carla would be blind. That's right.
Literally.
Without the surgeries and the things that we have available to us. So thank you, God. And
then I look at there's a black walnut tree now, and I just look at it. I'm like, I can see the leaves again, and I couldn't see anything. It's just, and we're heading to Colorado where we'll be in a black dark sky, and I'm like, if it's a clear night, I'll be like so excited to see the stars again. Yeah. So who knows? It may rain the whole time we're there. You never know.
No. Well, I love that. It always just does my heart good to be with you guys. And, try to look up that movie. I'll post it on the Facebook page. Do some things for your visual heart right now. And you can't physically do it for whatever the reason is, but feed your soul, because we need to stay encouraged, and we need to have a bright outlook for what's ahead. Hope is everything. It's everything. So say a little prayer for those that aren't with us today, and especially for Denise. We love and miss her.
Will do indeed. This was so good for me, you guys. This was awesome.
I told Sid, I said, I got to meet with my peeps.
There you go.
Norma, I'm so glad it worked out for you too. We missed you when you couldn't make it.
Thank you. I'm so thankful I got to spend this time with you guys.
Well,
I miss being with y'all.
I know. We'll have a reunion one of these days, and it might be heaven, but I'm going to say we're going to do it before heaven. Okay.
All
right. Blessings, and I'll see some of y'all in a few weeks. So watch for my info.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
All right. Bye.